Hey, good morning, folks. It's Pastor Stephen back again with another No Frills daily devotional. And today's topic is the Mirkwood Perspective. Now, if you're not a Tolkien fan and if you've never read The Hobbit, I just need you to hold on. I promise I'm going somewhere with this, but I'll talk a little bit about why I'm using that title in just a little bit. See, I've been talking about progress lately. And through the last couple episodes, including this one, I want to try to kind of tease out this idea that if God's always at work, okay, that's what we learned through the words of Jesus. If God is always at work in my life, why don't I always see the progress I'm looking for? Because we've been talking about trusting God with the process. And anytime we're getting stuck in our lives and making a mess of things, and we go to God and we try to trust Him with the process, one of the limiting factors to that can be not seeing progress. Okay. But we need to trust God. We need to trust Him. And so if He's always at work, though, why don't I always see the progress that I'm looking for? And I talked about how sometimes it's because we're looking for the wrong thing. And that's where I spent my time talking yesterday. But another thing that can affect that is sometimes we're looking in the wrong place. Okay. We're looking in the wrong place. And what I mean by that is sometimes we have the wrong perspective with our situations or in regard to our situation, where sometimes when we're stuck or we're dealing with a difficult situation or circumstance, we get so focused on our situation that we actually don't see what God is doing in our situation. Now, you might be thinking, wait a second, Stephen, how is that possible? Well, think about it like this. If you've got kids, okay, I've got kids, and I'm with them every single day, okay? And my kids, I know they're growing. I know my kids are growing because we have to buy them new clothes, okay? But I don't always see it, right? Like I just had some friends or cousins visiting from Florida, and they couldn't believe how tall Elliot is now compared to where he was last year. Okay. And so they hadn't seen Elliot for a year. And so to them, he had grown so much. Now, I've known that Elliot's growing, but he's growing little by little every day. And so I didn't always see the progress of his growth. I knew he was growing, but to me, it didn't seem like that big of a difference. But to them who hadn't seen him for a long time, it was a big difference. And that's the idea here, is that we, in our situations, when we're getting stuck and we're stuck in a difficult situation, we get so focused on that situation, tunnel vision, tunnel vision, tunnel vision, where that we don't see the progress, the little things that God is doing in our situation. And so what we've got to do is we've got to get a new perspective. And so where does this topic of the title of the Mirkwood Perspective come from? Well, it comes from The Hobbit, okay? And not necessarily the book, which is a really great book. It's one of the few books I've read other than the Bible. But in the Hobbit, Bilbo and the dwarves get stuck in this forest called Mirkwood, okay? And the forest is really dark, and they're surrounded by a lot of things. It's just very confusing for them, and they just end up wandering and despairing and losing hope, and it seems like all hope is lost to them, that they're never going to get out of this forest. And then all of a sudden they get this idea that Bilbo needs to climb a tree. And so Bilbo climbs a tree, and he gets up out of Mirkwood with his head, and he can start to see progress with this new perspective. He gets up above the canopy, and now he feels the sun on his face, and he starts to get hopeful and everything like that. And that's the idea here. We need to get a new perspective. Sometimes we get stuck in Mirkwood, where we're just lost in darkness, and we're wondering, God, are you even doing anything in this situation that I'm trusting you with? Get your head up out of Mirkwood, get a new perspective so that you can see what God is doing, right? Because we need to get a new perspective. We need a new perspective. And how do I get a new perspective? Well, honestly, it takes looking outside of myself. See, when I'm not seeing progress, and I'm not seeing progress because I have a wrong perspective, sometimes it's because I am so focused on myself and I'm so focused on my situation that I can't see what God is doing. And so I need to look outside of myself. And how can I look outside of myself then, Stephen? Well, it comes through serving others, okay? And it comes through prayer, and it might even come from meeting with a counselor or somebody that you can talk to honestly about your situation. And that's how we got to get a fresh perspective. We got to get outside of ourselves. But I would argue that serving others in prayer are the best possible ways, because when you serve others, you're not focusing on yourselves and your needs and what you want and your desires. Instead, you're focusing on someone else's needs and someone else's wants and someone else's desires. And so serving others is always going to help you get a fresh perspective on your situation. Okay. You might think you have bad kids until you teach somebody else's kids, right? Like, we need to get a fresh perspective. Prayer, talking to God about the situation, but then going into prayer where not only do you talk to God, but you listen for what he's speaking into your heart. And then you spend time praying also for others. And that's going to help you get a fresh perspective. All right. I want to take you to an interesting passage, and this is what I want to leave you with today. Okay. This is Psalm 121. And honestly, this psalm is very key in unlocking progress in your life. Okay, listen to what David says. He says this. He says, I lift my eyes up to the hills. And where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Remember, God's not that old grandpa on the couch, right? He's never sleeping. He's always at work. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day. The moon will not harm you by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. And what is David doing here? He's trying to encourage us, folks. He's trying to encourage us with this idea that we got to get a fresh perspective. We're looking in our situation and we're not seeing progress. Lift your eyes up. Look to God. Trust him. Let him watch over your life. Trust him with the process. Get a fresh perspective, and you're going to start to experience and see the progress that God has been doing all along. Hey, you guys, have an awesome day. Be blessed.